Hello, hello, hello. This is Danny Ceballos with your Best Boss podcast, joined by my four colleague coaches, part of the Hive. We are a group of seven coaches that have meeting and working together, not only for our clients, but for ourselves to become the best leaders of our lives, the best human beings that we possibly can. And we are so excited to bring this Hive, Best Boss Hive podcast to you. We have five of the seven coaches on our Hive call today. And we're going to do a really quick, brief introduction of each of us. So, Taryn, can I call on you first?
Sure. Thanks, Danny. I am Taryn Loxo, and I work with high achieving women to live their best life through midlife, especially through their perimenopausal hormonal season, if I can say that right, as a conscious leadership coach.
Thanks, Taryn. Dr. Donnie?
Yeah, hi, dear listeners. I'm Donnie Landefeld, and I serve high performing and high potential senior leaders and their teams to amplify their performance and well being, leaning into different experiences, including time spent in the boardroom and also on stage as a regularly performing, classically trained musician.
Awesome. Thanks. Sveta?
Hi, my name is Svetlana Parilova. I work with banking and fintech leaders and teams, help them reduce conflict, increase collaboration, and deliver results despite the relentless change in the marketplace.
Wonderful. And Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary Finnis. I'm a life leadership and sports performance coach. I help clients reach and exceed their goals and become their best self.
Awesome. And I'm Danny Ceballos. I'm with Unleash Consulting, and I build best bosses. I work with leaders and managers across sectors to become the best bosses and supervisors possible. Welcome, everybody. So glad to have you here. For those of you that are just joining us, know that as a Hive, we practice something called positive intelligence. I highly encourage, if you've never heard of it, please Google it. It's really a transformative practice, leadership practice, self-development practice that we have. In fact, that's what brought us all together as a Hive, is practicing positive intelligence, or PQ. And to anytime we're in a kind of PQ space, we want to start off with something called PQ reps, is a way of centering ourselves, of awakening the sage part of our mind, and starting to tamp down the saboteur part of our mind, which tends to be the limbic response. And we do that through a variety of ways. If you joined us in previous podcasts, you know I've taken you through a couple of exercises, but we are all fully trained coaches in this art, in this practice. And so I'm going to ask Taryn if you could lead us all in a brief PQ rep session. Taryn?
Thanks, Danny. Yeah, so we are going to do a visual PQ rep. And if you are driving or moving, we want you to be really safe. So focus on looking at something in your environment that allows you to still be safe. So that was my disclaimer right there. So for the rest of you, if you are sitting with your back straight, grounded, I invite you to find something, an object within your space, and go ahead and touch it, bring it into your hands, or just focus on something in your immediate area that you can look at. So that's a little preemptive grounding to get us in here. So with our eyes open, I would invite you to pay exquisite attention to what you're really looking at. Maybe it's just that one thing in front of you or on the horizon. Become exquisitely aware of what you're seeing. Notice the colors or the shades with great clarity. Notice textures and shapes in great detail. Giving yourself a full permission to look at this in a new way. Maybe you've never looked at it in this way before. And just soften your visual focus, if that is safe for you to do so, on what you're looking at. So you can sort of tune it out. Soften your gaze. And now we're going to shift our attention to the sense of touch. Touch something in your near space with your fingertips. Move your fingertips so you can feel all the nuanced sensations of the touch of your fingertips on this object that you have in front of you. giving yourself that sensation, noticing textures, temperature. And bringing yourself back into this present moment where we've tapped into our visual and our sense of touch. Just in a quick moment, coming back and noticing what you were able to experience in just a few short minutes. And bringing your attention back into this moment. And I'll invite Danny back in to the topic that we're going to talk about today.
Thank you, Taryn. Thank you. And again, as a reminder for folks who are listening and joining us, we do this again to really to do something effective and practical and actually kind of fast, which is to bring ourselves from one state, which tends to be our go-to state of limbic response, reacting, to a place of quiet, sage leadership presence. That sense of where we can access truths and insights that we can't access when we're in a limbic response. So again, hopefully you all were able to do that. You feel a different sense of being present, of being aware than you did before Taryn took us through our PQ reps. And we'll do that. You can look forward to that with each of our podcast sessions. So thank you again. All right, folks. So today's topic is particularly juicy, I think. It's something that I've been thinking about for a long time, actually. So I'm a leadership and management development coach. And I got to say, I have a preponderance, it's both how I'm built and how I see a necessity out there in the marketplace of leadership is a fast, quick, decisive response. And it's taken me years to recognize that that's not, that in fact, Peter Senge, who is one of the masters of really understanding leadership, really talks about 5 disciplines in leadership. And one of those is the appreciation of there are different norms, different things that are true in leadership. And he says one of them is faster is slower. And sometimes the easy way out usually leads back in. So all of those things are true. I know they are true, and that has been my work. So today we're going to be talking about this notion of when is faster slower, and when does it serve us, and when does it not serve us. So I wanted to start off by first talking about just some statistics, some things that we know are true about this paradox. And of course, I can't pull out the document. Oh, here we go. So we're talking today about the speed paradox, when to accelerate versus when to pause. There's some research from Microsoft that says meeting-free days increase focus by 35% and reduce stress by 29%. A Harvard study found executives who took time for reflection performed 23% better than peers. 67% of strategic initiatives fail due to poor execution, timing, often from rushing implementation, and companies with deliberate decision-making processes show 7% higher profitability on average. So to balance out that perspective, I got to say, there's plenty of research out there too that says sometimes faster is better and more effective. Companies that make faster decisions are 2.5 times more likely to outperform peers. First mover advantage typically results in 30 to 40% market share gain. 65% of executives cite slow decision-making as a top barrier to digital transformation. And lastly, teams that practice rapid iteration show 25% higher innovation rates. So there you go, folks. I hope you hear it. So there's really 2 sides to this, and hence the paradox. So I think it's worth diving in and finding out what makes most sense for you, dear listener, dear viewer, and for us as a Hive. So when does slowing down actually make you and the people that you work for, work with, your clients more efficient? And when is a quick, decisive action better? Donnie, let's start with you. When does slowing down actually make you more efficient? And when does quick, decisive action more effective?
Sure. Thanks, Danny. Happy to kind of kick us the conversation off here. So time and place for everything. And I'd like to invite our listeners to contemplate the distinction between the short-term impact and the long-term impact. And so this takes me to a strategy that I use with clients a lot. Basically, it's a quadrant of considering things that are considered to be important versus not important, and urgent versus non-important. And there are, of course, times when we do need to respond very quickly and spring into action. Anything that involves some sort of crisis where perhaps there might be life at stake or finances at stake. That's when we don't want to dawdle around and sit in analysis paralysis. On the flip side of that, whenever there's something that involves policymaking or planning, something that's going to have a long-term impact, this is where a little bit more deliberation and being strategic to have that intentional longer-term impact is really critical. You know, we see a lot of times there are so many organizations and so many teams that are responding to the fires of the day, the crises of the day. And it's necessary, though, if they're stuck in that reactivity all the time, they're not focusing on the more important things that impact the long term. And so, you know, time and place, we've got to consider those. And I'm going to pause there for now.
That's great, Donnie. Yep. And you can't go wrong with Covey's quadrants, right? That urgent versus important, always a go-to. Awesome. Hey, Taryn, what are your thoughts on this?
Makes me think of like the different parts of our brain. Are we in fight or flight? Do we need to make that decisive action from a sense of safety? Or do we need to go into our prefrontal cortex and look at things at a higher level, at a calmer, like where is executive functioning coming on board? I was sitting with when I'm needing to listen and learn and to really look at things at the bigger picture, I need to slow down. You know, to go slow means to go fast. And if I'm able to breathe, pause, notice, and choose where I'm at, I can make clearer decisions. And sometimes I want to, like Donnie said, get out of analysis paralysis. I might sit too much in a being space and I need to get into action. I need to do. And so that, you know, that is where I need to make that decisive choice and move into it. And sometimes my intuition, actually not even sometimes, intuition will come into play in that moment where I need to make that fast action going, and all the knowledge that I have will get me to the right next best step that I need to take. And so those are two of those different perspectives that I'm holding. Go slow to go fast, and trust your intuition and follow that course. And as I sit with being an anti-hustle coach, like I really do embody and support my clients in slowing down, especially when they're hitting burnout, especially for women. Burnout is a big thing. And if we're not slowing down to make conscious choices, we're setting up ourselves for our bodies burning out. So
Love that. Taryn, thanks so much. Mary, what are your thoughts on this?
I love that. And it really aligns with kind of what I'd like to share, which is a famous quote from John Wooden, who he's a legend in his time. He was a basketball coach for the UCLA Blue Bruins, won many national championships. And I think it's always good to look at someone who's been real successful at something, you know, performance, building young men. And his quote is, "Be quick, but don't hurry." And so this is like another way to say the same two things, just a little bit differently from a mindset standpoint. In other words, what does be quick mean? Well, you approach things with energy. Part of this is a perception of what that word means. You bring energy, you bring purpose. You're decisive, and you're still very proactive. And then the second piece of that is, but don't hurry, right? Don't rush. Don't try to act so fast that you don't take in the information you need to make a good decision. You know, that you make a poor decision because you're acting so quick. Or that also impacts your performance or your focus, right? Because you're acting so quickly. And it can sub-optimize, I think, too. What's that pain point or that point at break-even point where performance is impacted, quality is impacted, execution is impacted, processes are changed, standards aren't met. When we're hitting on that point, I think those are like nice things to think of in terms of the break point of how we make that decision. Also, a key thing on this is the point at which we stick to our core values, right? Those types of things. I think that's a key ingredient, and I love how it meshes with the other ways of thinking.
I love that. I love that, Mary. Mary Svetlana, what are you thinking?
Yes. So as I was hearing all of you and reflecting on Mary's, it's almost you have to be able to do both at the same time. So when I was reflecting into myself, I was thinking it's great to have it as your toolbox, have variety of your tools in your toolbox, so you should be able to to accelerate or slow down. And as I'm thinking about leaders and the level of decision making that they have to make, it's imperative to be able to run them in parallel. So you need to be able to run those quick decisive action, and while you have your sort of quiet space that is connected to your values and what Mary said, that connects to your intuition that Taryn said. So it's almost they need to be able to run in parallel, and it's like really like ninja trick for leaders. It's very, very hard. And I think, of course, but I think the way to think about it, maybe that's more accessible, is that the quick action to what I'm thinking is it's more tactical. Like it's really tactical when you know what to do, when the steps are known, take action, be very quick. But this ability to slow down periodically, and maybe that's iteration, Danny, that you talked about, is connecting to your strategic goals, right? So if you're always in this accelerated space, you may even lose track of those strategic initiatives, strategic goals that are actually need to be front and center, and that's what tactical steps should be supporting. So these are the things that I'm thinking.
So good. So good. All right. Listener and viewer, I hope you're loving the Hive as much as I love the Hive. This is so good. Buzz, 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 y'all. Great, great stuff. So my next question is, what do we do? So it seems to me that, we can adopt the perspective of both or one is better than the other, depending on strategy, all the things you say. Great stuff. Do you think that we have individually the wherewithal, the insight, the ability to manage that on our own, and or how much of it is related to external input and forces, right? So I think, it's one thing for me to know that I need to slow down in order to come to better decisions. If the rest of the world is telling me to speed up, are they right? I'm just wondering, how do you balance that? What is it a trust your gut thing, Taryn, or is it a balance of taking insight from all external stakeholders and mixing it in with your own? What do you think, Taryn?
I'm learning some patterns that we have been in the industrial age. Like it is all about speed. It is about going as fast as possible. And I believe that as leaders, we get to reprogram how we're thinking and relating to the slowing down. How might we be better served by slowing down and listening to what's going on rather than making decisive actions all the time? So that's what I want to invite us in, is maybe we need to take a stand for the slowing down, because we're all really, really, really good at going fast. And maybe what we need more of is slowing down. So as leaders, where can we invite more of that in and modeling that for others?
Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tara. All right, Sveta.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Danny, as you were saying about a client I used to work recently with, and so they were an MD in a tech company, and so that question came up because one of the performance reviews comments were about the desire to increase speed of action. But the person, like, it's an MD, it's a very, like, the decision making level that is required at that stage is very high. So decisions you're making are quite complex and sophisticated, and there are a lot of uncertainty. So I think that was a real problem, I think, for this person, because the company culture was about, okay, we need to be fast, we need to really and for all the reasons that Danny, you mentioned in your statistics, right? The market share, the first mover advantage, all of that is real. So of course it's really the culture of many companies is about, okay, we have to move fast. But then at the same time, it's very easy to start building a letter against the wrong wall. And sometimes it's very expensive letters, right? So if you're the higher the level of decision making, it's the more pauses you potentially may need to build into your practice. And it's a lot about personal practice, but it's very real as far as like I don't have it will be a requirement to balance it out from your external forces to maybe enroll your manager, right? Enroll your leader into why is it important to take the pause, bring the statistics or something. So it is not that easy. It's great for us to have this conversation, say, well, that's what we should be doing. But if you're in an environment and the pressures are coming at you, it's going to be a lot of work to take the stance and maybe educate people around you, because that's very real in many industries.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Mary, go
hop-
ahead. I'm sorry, Mary, and then Donnie.
Okay, and the add to that is it provides you the pause or the time, provides you the time to be able to adapt and be strategic in doing so, right? When we do these quick actions, knee-jerk reactions, let's say to try to hit the market, whatever that might be, versus the pause or the being strategic at doing so, and then also being able to adapt, right? And think of it in that perspective is another add and another positive to doing that.
Mhm.
Donnie.
Yeah, what I would add to that, it's kind of like a chicken egg nature nurture debate. And if a leader or a team really truly doesn't know in the moment, this goes back to the original question of do they know it or not? If they're not crystal clear, they don't have that place of knowing or the experience, I think that's a sure sign that slowing down is critical in that moment.
Ding, ding, ding.
To not make a reactive decision that's going to end up costing in some sort of detrimental way. That being said, there are things I really believe that need to happen strategically and slowly. Any kind of policy making, any kind of planning, hiring should be a little bit more slow and deliberate. On the flip side of that, firing should happen fast. There's even a book title such, hire slow, fire fast. You don't want to just bad hire on. There was an article in Inc. magazine early 2024 from one executive who takes an entire month out of the year to devote to reading, thinking, and planning. And he said that he does this so he can supercharge all the other days. So I think, it's catching on that giving ourselves that grace of time to really plan to be more effective has a great payoff.
Great insights. Such great insights, Hive. Thank you so much. Yeah. Let's have one more question, one round of discussion around this. And my question is, so it's kind of going back to what a number of us have talked about. We all have kind of I believe we have a preponderance towards our speed, our speedometer, right? My preferred speed is to go forward fast, move forward. I oftentimes have said to you all, sometimes I jump into the pool, whether I know there's water in there or not. And quite frankly, it's served me very, very well. So I think my work is to lean into slowing down, being more thoughtful, accessing the sage part of our mind. What do you all think of? What do we do with our own? How do we self-diagnose where we're good at this and when we're not good at this, and what do we do about it?
I can jump in. So
and then Taryn, go ahead.
There's a number of great assessment tools. And Danny, I'm laughing to myself because even in our Hive and now working together, you and I bumped heads because your speed is very quick. I tend to be slow. And that is, when we do, there's a Colby assessment, there is a DISC assessment that can give you natural tendencies. Maybe even Strengths Finder can also be helpful for that. But it's definitely, I think it can be a challenge in the teams because a person with a high speed will be frustrated with a person with a slow speed and the other way around. And I think it's just building that awareness, and also at the same time, I know that that's who we are. Like I cannot
Yeah,
change myself into you,
yeah,
can't change myself into
right,
me. We shouldn't,
yeah.
right? So it's really building that awareness of our own tendencies, and also learning how we can leverage those tendencies, individual tendencies, to build the collection of strengths as a team, so that it benefits the team as a whole rather than creates that tension. So that does work, and that's what we do as coaches, right? We can help leaders do this, exactly that thing. But yeah, there are assessments, and then there is also intentionality around it.
Love it. Taryn.
Well, speaking of assessments, I'm glad you brought up the Colby stuff, because I'm a quick starter. I'm very high on that. Like, I will get things started. It's maintaining and sustaining something. So I need other strengths as a part of my team. And I want to bring in seasons of the year, or seasons of your life, or on the month. And so from a yearly perspective, winter time is that time for planning and resting and thinking about what is going to be important, about what you want to be planting seeds for in the spring and harvesting in the summer into the fall. And I loved how, Donnie, you brought in that one leader and they spent a whole month. I imagine they're in that winter time of really strategizing and taking that month to plan out what is going to be in their garden of their leadership for the rest of the year. Like, imagine that's possible when we slow down, versus in winter, we're all trying to run around and do all these holiday things, and we're exhausted, or we have New Year's resolutions, and we're actually out of alignment with what Mother Nature is wanting for us.
Brilliant. Thanks, Taryn.
Yeah, and a quick
Coach Mary. Yeah,
I'd
go
like to
ahead.
add a quick summary to that nails it, which was going to be my answer, which is, what does the time provide? What is that opportunity, and what is needed at that moment? I mean, I can apply that to sport or business, right? You want to go to market, you have a program, you want to get it out there, you think you need to get out there, but with the time allotted, what do you need to do? Do you need to do a pilot and get more information? I mean, that would be one example, but seeing time as an opportunity, and at which point the value is diminished, and it's time to make sure you meet your need and take action as needed.
Y'all should be coaches. You know that? You really should, because you're so friggin' brilliant. I just can't stand it. Dr. Donnie, take us home.
Very quickly, just to kind of summarize all the insights shared from everyone here. I'm a firm believer it takes all types to make the world go round. And when we use these assessments and when we lean into them, it's great to have this awareness on the team, in the organization. There's a time and a place for everything and for everyone. And what has made us all unique and where we're powerful is we know our strengths, we know our flares and our flaws, and we know when to use those and to lean into them. You all know I'm not a quick start. I'm very methodical. And so that's how we balance one another out.
Yeah, the power of the hive, right on. Awesome. Well, coaches, thank you so much for joining me here on the Best Boss podcast. Exciting to really explore this paradox. Looking forward to our next conversation together. Dear listener and dear viewer, keep an eye out for our next podcast. And please let us know what you're thinking about the podcast format that we've newly adopted, this new Hive format. We would love to hear from you. Your feedback is incredibly valuable for us. And tell us what you'd like to hear us take apart and help unravel in the Hive. We would love to hear from you. Coaches, thank you so much. By way of summary, it seems to me that there is, kind of borrowing from what Dr. Donnie said, a number of you, there is a time and a place for being fast and for slowing down. The importance of understanding what is the container that is holding that opportunity. Are there limits on that? Sometimes you need to be fast. You need to respond to emergencies. Sometimes we have the luxury, which actually turns out to be more effective, of slowing down, taking a look at that, and also looking and understanding what you and your teams and your families' preponderances are, and understanding how to work with those. And I put a little a little throw in there that, working with any of us as your coaches or all of us, we are all fans of assessments, knowing where you are before, because as is often said, you don't know where, if you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to end up somewhere else. So we start off with assessments, and we would love to work with you. So give us that opportunity, both to work with you and also to join us on our next podcast. And everybody, at the count of 3, can we all say goodbye and thank you? 1, 2, 3.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And we'll see you next time. This is Danny Ceballos with Unleashed Consulting and your Best Boss Hive podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.